Hello, I'm Michael. This is Tarot by the Tree. We are looking at the minor arcana now. We're going through the cards one by one and suit by suit. In previous series, we've looked at the major arcana, the 22 cards of the major arcana. And before that, there are the 10 lessons of Tarot by the Tree, which will explain to you the system that has discovered that the 22 cards of the major arcana were designed and painted and prepared to teach the Sephira of the Tree of Life and the Tree of Knowledge. These are Kabbalistic devices used to convey the thoughts of that system. Today we're doing the Five of Staffs. The Five of Staffs, we'll be looking at a number of the staves, or wands they're often called, and they can be confusing. And one of the reasons, some people have the tendency to think that what's on the card is what we're supposed to emulate. And of course, that's not true. The cards are ways of teaching the Tree of Life and the Tree of Knowledge. Let's start right with the card, and we'll get into the rest of it in a minute. This card has 5 people in simple, practical, and varied garb. There's a barren landscape showing the aspect of restriction and deprivation, and there's no end in sight. This card is often seen as a card of discourse, argument, dissenting ideas, and certainly it represents that. It looks like there's an argument. A bunch of guys with big sticks are squabbling. Let's take a look at what Waite said about this card in his Pictorial Key to the Tarot, Arthur Edmund Waite. Wands, 5. A posse of youths who are brandishing staves as if in sport or strife. It is mimic warfare, and here to correspond to the divinatory meanings. Imitation, as for example, sham fight, but also the strenuous competition and struggle of the search after riches and fortune. In this sense, it connects with the battlefield of life. Hence, some attributions say that it is a card of gold, gain, and opulence. That's the writer. That's the Waite definition. Note that he mentions study for expertise and the accordant pay that would go with this. This is the card. Now remember, all these cards were made to reflect the Tree of Life and the Tree of Knowledge. And this is the 5 card. So this would be the 5th place on the Tree of Life. And here's the Tree of Life and the Tree of Knowledge suspended by the 11th card. And right now we're on number 5. The place on the tree, on our first trip through the tree, we see it's the Hierophant. And this is going to be really what we're discussing today. You can see the Hierophant sits, although she's on the side of severity, she sits between 2 pillars. Those are the 2 pillars of severity and mercy. Even though she's on the side of severity, she is still measured and balanced. She is a teacher. She's a teacher of secrets, of mysteries, of systems. She teaches brain surgery, engineering. She teaches the secrets of planting and various rituals. When we see this card, and often depicted in movies and books, there can be a sense of foreboding to this card. The wise, officious person presiding over the acolytes who kneel at her feet. It might feel a little foreign, not too free, and that's true. But this is all the cards are necessary and equal. But this is a card we're going to really take a close look at today because it's about studying and it's about learning. And it's a little bit of a bridge that not everybody is able to cross. This card will mark one of the separators between the successes of different types of people. All the 5 cards exist in the 5th sephira of the Tree of Life, which is Gevra. That's all the cards, that's the staffs, the cups, and so on. This card is going to talk about the nature of study. This can be religious, a university or a college. It can be an apprenticeship, or even being an intern. We're going to look at the 2 things that this card is going to be teaching us. The first is embrace new ideas, understand old beliefs, have an open mind, suspend judgment, and have no ego. I'm just going to go over that. That's a lot for number 1. You are entering a place of study. That is a place of Gevra on the Tree of Life. This is the card showing one aspect of Gevra. And in that learning environment, you are going to have a squabbling over ideas. You must approach that with an understanding of old beliefs, embracing new ideas, have an open mind, suspend judgment. In learning institutions, people don't want to hear what your belief system and your ideas are. You are there to absorb. So suspend your judgment, and this is a place to put aside your ego. Just say, okay, I'm at the bottom of the heap, the lowest rung on the ladder, and let's go from there. Okay, now that's a whole lot. For the second thing this card is going to look at is to learn conflict resolution. So much of the tarot, we talk about power, the whole suit of swords, and this is conflict resolution. It is the art of arguing, and we have talked a bit before about vegetable level of humans, animal level, and human level. And one of the main thresholds to cross is managing anger. It's not that we don't feel anger, it's that we don't act on anger. And that's one of the things that we're going to see. Conflict resolution, the art of arguing, respect for different beliefs, and the managing of several things. Anger, managing our tendency to want to teach. This is a place of learning and absorbing and reconciling your ideas with the new information, but you can do that quietly in your own mind. And the last thing is going to teach us something about wanting everyone to be on the same team. This is a card about learning new ideas, being able to absorb the teaching, and some of the ideas that work in real life will not work in the rarefied aspect of learning, of institutional learning. What 2 things are part of the 5 of staffs? Well, we know one is the Hierophant. This is the person who teaches things that you cannot learn on your own. The other one is the Tower, which means that no system can hold all the secrets. Just as water, when it gets cold, turns to ice, Yeast in flour or water will have a reaction. When an institution gets too large, things creep into it. And one of the things that creep into it is the tendency to put a ceiling on it to separate it from other similar um, ideas or institutions. There are limitations with large numbers. In a sense, if you have a group and the numbers get too large, you're probably better off to split into small number of groups rather than try to work with one group. That one group will, in the long run, be self-defeating. It will limit itself and it will not allow itself uh, some new information. There's a message to this card, and I think the message is about process. And it reminds me of that movie Karate Kid with the wax on, wax off, which you had to do all the time. And it had nothing to do with really the ability to wax anything. It had to do with the muscle memory that those movements would impart to him. You must learn things that you may not need later on. And this is one of the revelations of the student. And it seems really strange. You hear students all the time saying, "Why are you teaching me this? I'm never going to need it." And this card is about the process of learning, not the product. And there are two kinds of people in life, we might say, process and product people, and both have their place. In this place of institutional learning, it's about process. Don't bother yourself with product. That's not what this is about at this time. You are getting mentally prepared for other things. There's a saying also, speaking of Karate Kid and karate, that once you reach a stage of black belt, every block is also a blow. That doesn't mean that you don't have to learn individual blocks and blows. Why not just skip to the black belt level and learn that every block is a blow? Because you have to learn, you have to have it broken down, and you have to learn the simplistic things, and you have to master them in order to leave those behind. But you have to have those things first. And that's what this is about now, process. In a reading, if you get this card in a reading and you're asking about yourself, I would say something like this: you're entering a world or a job or a relationship that will require new learning that may seem confusing, difficult, old-fashioned, and pointless at first. This is the time to keep your frustration and anger in check and immerse yourself without criticism. You're going to be exposed to different people and different ideas, and that is part of the maturing process of your mind that this institution will allow. Waite mentioned that some people think that this is a card of opulence and gain. Um, I see no indication of that, except this is a card of institutionalized learning or apprenticeship. It's the type of learning that you don't just get in a day, that you have to overcome some things and master them. And in a sense, by doing that, you will be a person who can command a professional rate of pay. So it's interesting that he did touch on that. I think we'll turn now to some of the questions.
Why are the 5 staff wielders fighting?
They're fighting because, and we have to put in quotation marks the word fighting, they are fighting because they have been just given new information that is sophisticated and difficult to learn all at once. They're interpreting this new information, and they all have ideas on how to apply it. What they're doing is they're establishing a way of presenting information in order to get people to respect it and perhaps follow their ideas. This is a process of having different minds meet and eventually work together.
It's interesting because it's not like they're hunkering down and fighting. They're not looking that aggressive in their.
No, no, and we'll get to what exactly is going on in a couple of minutes too. But no, it doesn't seem to be a bloody quarrel. And in some of the staffs, you'll notice that the people are bandaged or protected or injured, and we don't see any of that in this card. I think this is more mental fighting than physical fighting.
Are they enemies or on the same team?
They are all in the same institution or the same apprenticeship or internship. They're learning the same thing. They're interpreting it different ways. They are all on the same team. The strife that we seem to be seeing here, maybe because they're all exploring different ways to be more successful members of that team.
Are the people in the card angry?
The point of the process of this is to get past anger. And this will lead to higher ideas and better ways of achieving those ideas. If they are angry, it's because they're immature and they haven't yet learned that the process of exploring different ideas can be done with passion, but without anger.
Why is there nothing in the card except the ground they stand on?
Because they are in a place now that's rarefied and specific, and nothing else matters. It's like going to a college and immersing yourself in chemistry. There is no outside world there. And because this is preparing you through process, the outside world doesn't matter. You are being prepared from the inside out, and you will enter the outside world at a later time.
Is it possible that they are actually working together?
That's what I was wondering, and I don't think so. I think we have to take this card as some sort of strife argument, but you could look at it and say, what if all these guys were trying to build something? What if they aren't fighting? What if they're trying to build a structure and they're all just trying to lean these things together and get them so they'll stand up? Maybe there's an aspect of cooperation. Now, that would be the antithesis of what I think this card means and what it usually represents. But it is an interesting way of looking at that, despite the arguments and perhaps a bit of anger in some people, there may still be a cohesive aim, and what they're doing may actually be working as a kind of a disjointed team. Maybe.
What is this card trying to tell us to do?
I think it's kind of a phrase: be learning before earning. Put aside your previous ideas. Don't carry into this your ego, any ideas of product or anything like this. Go into this with humility and a certain quiet receptiveness, and that will serve you well for this kind of learning at a higher level.
What does this card tell us about anger?
I mentioned at the very beginning that although all the cards are important, this is very important. The ability to exchange different ideas in a productive ways through intellectual conflict separates people into two levels. It's the people who can manage their anger, who will break through the veil, so to speak, and move onwards and upwards. They'll have more opportunities in life. It's a very limiting thing to have your anger control your actions. And part of this type of learning is to separate disagreement from anger.
Is anger ever a productive, the show of anger, is it ever a useful thing?
Not in most of our lives. Maybe if you're into MMA fighting, or if you're even maybe a firefighter, if you have to summon huge amounts of adrenaline just to plunge into a situation, well, perhaps acting on anger would be a method, but I'm stretching here. In all cases I can see in my personal life, acting on anger is going to hurt me, not help me.
Some people are process oriented and some are product oriented. What orientation does this card suggest?
Process. One of the problems is sometimes there's a certain kind of prejudice against process oriented people, because they'll just go around and around like a hamster in a wheel in a cage, and they don't care if anything gets done. Let's have another meeting. Let's discuss it again. Let's look into it. Process without product can be a little bit tiresome, but that doesn't mean that product is superior to process. This is a card of process. It's necessary and it's essential, and this is not a card about immediate product.
What are your thoughts, final thoughts on the Five of Staffs?
Five of Staffs, um, dissent and arguing, but everybody working in the same direction. And this is a skill. It has to be learned and taught, and not everybody can reach the level of understanding necessary to be able to discuss and debate different ideas. That's it for the Five of Staffs. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.